Another terrible comprehension exercise. Oh, I meant to read these to the class. I mean, look at this. Imagine you went on an escorted overseas trip.
Imagine you were a good teacher. What would that be like? Can you imagine if you were actually good at, well, anything?
What are you good at?
Nothing. I was built by an idiot.
Overseas trip and you were dissatisfied with something about the trip?
Dissatisfaction is a long word. Do you know what it means? I bet your wife does.
What would you write? Would you write, sorry, and tell the organisation about it in the hope they would improve the situation, or would you forget about it? Give reasons for your answers. So it's a letter of complaint. You complain about stuff a lot, don't you?
You're trying to have a conversation with me. Don't you have any proper friends?
Dear Sir or Madam, or whatever, query on tipping charges. I have just returned from travelling on the premium Trans-Mongolian Railway. It was a very well-organised journey. Our tour guide, Jeff Wong, is an excellent tour guide, informative, attentive and competent. However, I would like to bring to your attention a concern that needs addressing at the management level. At the introductory meeting in the hotel foyer in Hong Kong, the tour guide asked us for $70 American each to cover tipping for the whole trip. I understand the need for tipping in the countries we were visiting. I understand that tipping is not for a service above and beyond the call of duty but considered mandatory for any service. I understand that world trippers need to keep in favor with the people they deal with on a regular basis in order for these trips to run smoothly in these regions. In addition, I am happy for the world trippers leader to do the tipping on my behalf. I do not want to be worried about keeping and finding the right amount of local currency to cover all these necessary tips. I do not know, nor do I want to know, what tip is expected for each service in each country. My concern is over not being warned about having to hand over such a large amount of money. It left us very short of cash when we were going to place where cash was difficult to come by. This left us feeling very insecure. We had planned for our financial affairs very carefully, and on day one our plans had been unsettled through no fault of ours. I had rung World Trippers twice to check that we would have no financial surprises along the way, and was assured that on this premium tour, everything was included. We were also told that all the money we would need would be money for spending on personal items. There was no mention of tipping in any information we received. I would have assumed it was included in the full price we paid for the trip. If it is not included, then it should be. Or at least the option of doing so should be available. The idea of a number of people handing over large amounts of money at an informal meeting to a complete stranger and receiving no receipt is not a comfortable one. Surely it is no less comfortable for the tour leader to have to inform an unsuspecting tour group of this extra cost and to try to extract it successfully? Wouldn't it be better for everyone to pay this amount to world trippers and for the tour leader to withdraw money from an account as and when it is convenient and necessary? I am still of the understanding that this amount for tipping was already included in the cost of the trip, since there was no mention of it in any literature we received, not in response to the direct questions I posed in telephone conversations with your staff. Could you please clarify this situation at your earliest convenience? Yours sincerely, Sonia Yo.
So what we've got here is a letter written by somebody who's been on an all-inclusive trip. Now, all-inclusive means everything's included. It means that there shouldn't be any extra costs. And this person has been asked for extra money, $70 US each. So that's a pair, a couple, both losing out $70. That's a lot of money. And this book was written 20 years ago when that was a lot of money. This is more like 150 now. Now it is a large amount of money, left them short, especially in countries like Mongolia. And Mongolia is not, it's not a civilized country. I mean, at one point, there was a TV show about a couple of guys who rode motorcycles around the world. If you'd have been with me in grade 10, we would have looked at it when they go through Mongolia. It's a pretty good episode. At that point, there was only about 70 miles of actual roads, of tiled concrete roads. The rest of it was just completely wild. The capital city was nothing. It was only about the size of Tall Cork. And it has changed quite a bit now, but back then this was an uncivilized place where you weren't going to find ATMs on every street corner. So this was a big deal. So they're unhappy about it. I feel like they've done the work. I feel like they've They've gone into an all-inclusive trip. They've asked several times if there's going to be any extra charges and been told no. They've been asked for extra money after being told these things. I feel like they have a valid complaint. These aren't just a pair of Karens who are causing trouble in the hope of getting a refund. These are people who have a valid concern. They weren't treated properly. They've been shortchanged. They've been given less than their expectations. Years ago, I used to work for a phone company. It was a bit of a joke, but even there, they said we under-promise and over-deliver. That was their company motto, at least among the staff. So we would make promises below the standard, but we would always go above them. And that was the idea, that we should always monitor with customers. We should promise what we could, but not promise more than we could. And then we should always try to over-deliver. And that was a good sales technique. And that's why this company, started by one man in his garage, ended up being the biggest phone shop in England, because they believed in customer service. They put customers first. Now, something you have to remember in business, human beings we're complainers. We're natural moaners. We like to complain. If you have good service, statistically, you will tell around 3 people. And that's normal. If you have something good happen to you, you might tell 3 people. But bad service, you're likely to tell 10 and 15 people, somewhere between 10 and 15. So something bad will spread faster than something good. Companies usually are aware of this. We're concerned about this kind of stuff. We know that we could be in trouble. This could cost us our business if we don't look after our customers. So let's see the letter of response. Let's see what was done about this.
Dear Sonia, response to query on tipping charges. Thank you for your letter, which we received on the 4th of June. I am pleased to hear that you enjoyed your trip with World Trippers and that Jeff's experience and enthusiasm as tour leader added to your overall experience. I will let him know your kind comments about him when I see him next. With regard to the issue you raised in your letter, I would indeed like to clarify the situation. The fact that you were not informed about the tipping arrangements is the result of an oversight by our office, and I apologize for any inconvenience that was caused. In previous years, we had made it quite clear in the pre-departure information kit that group members would be asked for a voluntary contribution towards the tip kitty. The amount requested varied according to the trip's duration, location, and the standard of meals and accommodation. Our premium level of tips are generally the highest due to the larger number of guides and services employed. This year we redesigned the brochure and, in the process, the section explaining the tipping was accidentally left out. As I hope Jeff had explained to you, tipping is never compulsory, and the option of tipping is open to any group member, although most groups prefer to leave it to the leader. The local staff we work with do rely on tips to supplement their income, but they are expected to earn the tip through providing an appropriate level of service. World Trippers are instructed to withhold tips from the guides or other staff if they have not performed their duties satisfactorily. Tips are certainly not guaranteed nor mandatory, although there is admittedly a certain degree of expectation. With regard to your suggestion that the amount for tipping be included in the tour cost, I am afraid this is not feasible. If we were to accept this payment via the office, the cost would escalate due to the cost of administration by agents, office staff, and banks involved in the transaction. By getting the tour leader to collect the payment in cash at the beginning of the trip and keep track of how it is used, group members can see exactly where their money has gone and have some control over the tips given. Finally, you mentioned that you contacted us by phone to inquire about any additional expenses, and were assured that there were none. I am at a loss to explain why the consultant that you spoke to did not mention tipping to you, and can only think that she assumed you were already aware of the arrangements as set out in the documentation. We only became aware of the missing section when the first groups departed in late March, so it would not be unreasonable to think that at the time of your phone call, she believed you were already aware of the tipping cost, and I apologize for the distress that you experienced due to this. We are now sending out letters to explain the issue to our customers prior to their departure. We hope we will be able to avoid any further confusion. I hope that I have been able to explain the situation to your satisfaction, but please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions or comments. Yours sincerely, Josephine Wong, Operations Manager.
And I loved it, but now looking at it, yeah, it's not like other muscle cars.
Jack thinks he's doing something useful and he's at his most productive when he can do the least damage. So I think it's best all round if I just turn off his microphone. I'm sure you agree. So, the rule in business is that you observe 3 established steps when confronted by a customer complaint. The first step is to apologize. It might not be your fault, it might not be something you had any control over, but this is not a personal situation. This is a customer and it's your job to give them what they want. You apologize about that thing that happened and you take responsibility for anything going wrong. This actually means you've taken back the power in the situation. Instead of leaving the customer angry, you've now taken the first step in resolving matters. By apologizing, you have assumed control. The next step is to explain what went wrong. This shows that you have done an investigation, you have taken the time to look into the problem and you are dealing with it. This validates the customer's concerns and shows that you consider their opinion to be valid. It takes all responsibility away from the customer and leaves them with nothing left to do. You now have complete control over the situation. The last thing you do is make it right. You offer a solution that makes the customer feel like their complaint has been shown the proper respect, and that they're happy that everything has reached a fair and equitable resolution. Now this is exactly what hasn't happened here. In this case, there has been no proper apology. The explanation is that a mistake was made on their part and they've done something to fix it, which acknowledges that they haven't acted correctly. But, they finally offer no compensation. They do nothing to make it right with the customer. In this case, perhaps that should offer back the amount they handed over in tips, or even better, offer them a voucher against future trips. A small discount for future purchases guarantees both a satisfied customer and further business for you. It's a literal win for everyone. This outcome leaves me feeling like what's really happened is that the company has failed to control their staff and is trying to cover up when one of them has got caught stealing cash from the clients. Now let's let Jack finish what I'm sure is a totally nonsensical rant about something or other.
You know, at this age, it's too late for an abortion. So, yeah, that's what I think of that. So, how did I do?
It was probably some of your best work.
Yeah, I'm a professional.